Hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to section 2. In this lecture we're going to look at cloud computing and AWS. We're going to explore what it is at a high level and we're going to cover off the 6 advantages of cloud computing, the 3 different types of cloud computing, and then 3 different deployment types of cloud computing. So what is cloud computing? Well, it's the on-demand delivery of compute, database storage, applications, and other IT resources through a cloud services platform like Amazon, for example, via the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. So I want you to think of it simply as renting someone else's computer. So you can rent it to do computations, you could rent it to store your files, you could rent it to send text messages, etc., etc. So cloud is just a way of using somebody else's computing capacity, and you're going to rent it by paying either by the minute or by the hour or even by the second. That is all that cloud is. It's just renting someone else's computer. So what are the 6 advantages of cloud computing? Well, this is actually discussed in the first white paper, which is an overview of Amazon Web Services. And that's what was, it's the very first one that's mentioned in the exam blueprint. So if you do get the chance, I would recommend that you go ahead and read that. I'll link to it in the resources section of the course. And we're going to cover it at a very quick sort of high level. So the first advantage of cloud computing is you can trade capital expense for variable expense. So instead of having to invest heavily in data centers and servers before you even know how you're going to use them, with Amazon Web Services or with other cloud computing providers, you can pay only when you consume computing resources and pay only for how much you consume. So basically, you're going to pay for only what you use. You don't have to sign 3 or 5 year contracts. You don't have to go out and buy physical servers, networking gear, etc. That's the great thing about cloud computing. You can spin up a little server, you can have it running for 60 seconds and then decide you don't want to use it that way. Go ahead and terminate it, and you've only paid for that 60 seconds worth of server time. The second advantage is you can benefit from massive economies of scale. So you're never going to have the same purchasing power as Amazon. Amazon literally will go out and build their own physical servers, their own networking gear, their own storage arrays, etc. Amazon are going to do this much better than you. And this is a meme that I've made, which is a South Park meme. I don't know if you guys watch South Park, but the skiing instructor would always say, if you do this, you're going to have a bad time. So if you try and compete with Amazon, you're going to have a bad time. You're never going to compete with the company that has that level of purchasing power. And they pass those cost savings on to you. The third advantage is you stop guessing about capacity. So you're probably either going to buy too much or too little. You might have 10 web servers when you only need 4, or you might only have 2 when you need 6. In that scenario, if you buy too much, you've wasted money, and if you buy too little, you're going to have downtime. Now, cloud can scale with your business needs with no long-term contracts. We're going to cover that off as we go throughout this course. We're going to look at auto-scaling, but essentially we can set up metrics and say, when my website gets this busy, then add additional web servers, and it will scale automatically and in line with your capacity needs. The fourth advantage to cloud computing is you can increase your speed and agility. And A Cloud Guru is a perfect example of that. So my brother Sam built the platform in 3 weeks. He went and took 3 weeks off of work and he went and locked himself away in a bedroom, basically used up all his annual leave, and he built our entire learning management system in 3 weeks. And it was designed using a new type of architecture called serverless architecture. We're going to explore serverless later on in this section of the course, but essentially it means you've got no virtual machines or physical machines. It scales infinitely with demand. And if we were to start this business 15 years ago, we probably would have had to go out and buy servers and rent data center space, and we probably honestly never would have gotten off the ground. We would have had to have a large amount of capital. I literally started this business by buying a 15-pound microphone and using a really, really old laptop. And because we had the advantage of being able to use Amazon Web Services and actually knowing the services inside out, we were able to build our own school. And the way we designed it didn't use any servers, and effectively we got basically free hosting for 2 years. It was only when we started getting really, really big is when we started incurring a bill. And even now, our compute bill is about $500 a month, which is just amazing when you think that we are getting close to 1 million students. So the great thing about cloud computing is you can increase your speed and agility in moving into the cloud. Number 5, stop spending money running and maintaining data centers. Focus on what you're good at, not managing infrastructure. Let someone else manage that for you. Number 6 is go global in minutes. So easily deploy your applications in multiple regions around the world with just a few clicks. And this means you can provide lower latency and a better experience for your customers at a minimal cost. So there's 3 different types of cloud computing. We've got infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Infrastructure as a service is basically AWS. This is where you manage the server. It can be physical or virtual, as well as the operating system. Usually the data center provider will have no access to your server. So a good example of this would be EC2. AWS actually goes up into all 3 layers, but infrastructure as a service is EC2, which we're going to cover off in a couple of lectures from now. We then have platform as a service. I want you to think of GoDaddy as a good example for this. With GoDaddy, you can just upload a bunch of website code and it will and just basically point your domain name to it, and then it will show up. You don't have to worry about managing the underlying hardware and operating systems. You just focus on your applications, and somebody else worries about security, patching, updates, and maintenance. Amazon do this as well through either Elastic Beanstalk or through Amazon Lightsail. So they do provide platform as a service as well. Then we have software as a service. The easiest one to think about is for this is Gmail. So all you do is manage your inbox or the software provided to you by Google. Then Google takes care of things like the data centers, the servers, the network, the storage, the maintenance, the patching, and all you have to do is worry about the software itself and how you want to use it. I'm terrible at Gmail. I've got at least 30,000 unread emails right now. It's just sort of a running joke in my company. But yeah, hopefully you guys can manage your email a lot better than I can. And then we've got the 3 different types of cloud computing deployment. So we've got public cloud, and this is the big 3. So we've got AWS, we've got Azure, we've got GCP. We then have hybrid. This is a mixture of public and private. So you might have your websites out on the public cloud, but then you might have all your confidential employee information on your own servers that you host, and you don't really want anyone to be able to access that. So that's a mixture of public and private. And then we have private cloud or on-premise, and this is where you manage it in your data center. Common deployments in this would be OpenStack or VMware or Microsoft's Hyper-V. And most organizations do either private cloud or hybrid cloud, a mixture of public and private. But a lot of big enterprises now are just going all in on the public cloud. Capital One is a very good example. They wanted to get rid of all their data centers and let Amazon worry about managing the data centers. Capital One wanted to go out and build their own applications and just become more of a lot of people think of Capital One as a bank, but they're actually more of a tech company than a bank. So that's a good example of people who have gone all in on public cloud. So this is an actual photo. This is a Tesla Roadster in orbit of the Earth. On the 6th of February 2018, Elon Musk sent his Tesla Roadster on the way to Mars using the Falcon Heavy. And you can see here on the screen, it says, "Don't panic." Now, as we go through and look at all the different AWS services, you're going to get a little bit overwhelmed. You're going to start to panic. But don't worry, you don't need to know all these services in order to pass your certified cloud practitioner. To be honest, I've got a lot of certs, and I still don't know all the services. So there is no one, I doubt there's any one person in the world now who knows all of the AWS services inside out. Basically, a lot of people just specialize in particular areas. So let's have a look at the high-level services, and we'll start with the AWS Global Infrastructure. So these are the data centers spread all throughout the world in which Amazon Web Services has all their different services. And their services consist of things like compute, storage, databases, migration and transfer, network and content delivery, developer tools, they have robotics, they have blockchain, they have satellite, they have management and governance, they have media services, machine learning, analytics, security, identity and compliance, mobile, AR and VR, so augmented reality and virtual reality, application integration. We then have AWS cost management, customer engagement, business applications, and then we have our desktop and app streaming. We We then have IoT, and we then have game development. And these are all the high-level services. Under these individual sections, there's a whole bunch of different services. So compute might have 5 different services available to it. Robotics currently just has 1. Application integration might have 10. So there's an awful lot of services. So you might be wondering, what is actually applicable to the Certified Cloud Practitioner exam? Well, it's just these services. So compute, storage, databases, migration and transfer, network and content delivery, security, identity and compliance, and then AWS cost management. And that's really all you need to know to pass your Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. And we're going to cover this off in a lot of detail in the rest of the course. And to be honest, you could probably lose those 2 services as well. So really the core fundamental services are compute, storage, databases, security, identity and compliance, and AWS cost management. That's really what you need to know in order to pass your Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. So what will you learn in this course? Well, under compute, you're going to learn about EC2 and you're going to learn about Lambda. So EC2 is just virtual machines in the cloud. Lambda is the next sort of level up where you don't have to worry about virtual machines at all you worry about is your code. You then have databases. You're going to learn about relational databases, so RDS, as well as DynamoDB, which is Amazon's non-relational database. Then going to look at storage. So we're going to start with S3, which is known as Simple Storage Service. Going to look at Glacier. And then we're also going to look at networks. We're going to look at VPCs at a very high level. You don't really need to know them in a lot of depth until you go on to do your associate exams. And we're also going to look at Route 53, which is Amazon's DNS service. So when you type in hellocloudgurus.com, how does that connect up to a web server? And don't worry if you do not come from a tech background. I like to quote myself here, but seriously, anyone can learn AWS. I myself started out as an immigration lawyer. I was not in tech at all. I went and learned. I went to night school and got my Microsoft and Cisco certifications. Off the back of that, I got a job at Rackspace, and that's where I learned to become a solutions architect. And at the time, we were at war with Amazon to dominate the public cloud. So I learned an awful lot of AWS stuff while working in the industry, but I do not come from a tech background. I do not have a software engineering degree. I do not have a computer science degree. I only learned to program when I was like 27, 28 years old. So anyone can learn AWS. You do not have to have a tech background, and anyone can pass the Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. And I've taught this to over 750,000 people. So trust me, I do know what I'm talking about. Don't worry if you don't have any sort of technical background. We will have an explain it like I'm 5 approach, and we're going to take all the concepts and just start you out slowly and then just build on the different sort of concepts as we go. And then by the end of this course, you should be ready to pass the Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. So why should you learn AWS? So this is cloud as a portion of total potential market spend. So in this graph, basically what they're saying is in 2015, out of all the IT spend that organizations had, 4.3% of that was spent on cloud computing. By 2016, it was 6.1%. We go up to 2019, we're at 11.3%, and they are predicting it to increase by 50% by 2021, all the way up to 15.3%. So you can imagine how much further this has to go. Eventually, we're going to get in the sort of high 70s or 80%. And this is the public cloud as market share. So basically in 2016, Amazon had 35% of the market share, Microsoft had 8%, and then Google and Alibaba basically made up 2%. And you had all the other cloud providers, so this could be Colo, this could be people like Rackspace, etc., at 52%. And then, as you can see, as we go towards 2019, the other providers are dropping off. Microsoft is managing to sort of keep pace with Amazon. Google's slowly getting there as well as Alibaba, but Amazon are the clear market leaders. So what I'm trying to show you from these 2 graphs is that this is an incredible industry to get into because it's got an awful long way to grow. Companies are spending more and more on public cloud. And once you get certified, you're going to have really good job security. Getting AWS certified is a fantastic move for your future. There are very few people out there who are AWS certified, and the more certs you get, the more sort of unique you are. So I would encourage you to go on and do at least some associate courses. preferably the Certified Solutions Architect Associate. And if you really want to get into it, go and do the professional level courses. So what are my exam tips? Well, you need to know the 6 advantages of cloud. So they are trade capital expense for variable expense, benefit from massive economies of scale, stop guessing about capacity, increase speed and agility, stop spending your money running and maintaining data centers, and you can go global in minutes. Also know the 3 different types of cloud computing. So we looked at infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. Infrastructure as a service is just like EC2. Platform as a service will be things like GoDaddy or Elastic Beanstalk, where you upload your code and then they will go in and provision the underlying resources for you. And then we have software as a service, which is just very similar to Gmail. Don't worry if you don't know what EC2 and Elastic Beanstalk and that sort of stuff is. We will cover that off later on in this section of the course. And then finally, note the 3 different types of cloud computing deployments. So we've got public cloud, which is AWS, Azure, GCP, Alibaba. We then have hybrid, which is a mixture of public and private cloud. And we then have private cloud itself, which is on-premise, where you manage it in your data center. So it's OpenStack, VMware, or even Hyper-V. So that is it for this lecture. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.